Okay, so I don't know if this stream is gonna go up properly because the power just went down in my house. I'm recording this um, with no power in my house. So if the internet goes out during this stream, then I apologize, but there's nothing much I can do. I've also been suffering from a bit of an artist block or creator's block, which I guess explains why I just wasn't able um, to make this video like stream this video like sooner is because I was suffering from artist block and I just didn't know what to say. Um, but yeah, I have a couple things to say about this race at Talladega. A bit of some contrarian thoughts, but um, finally got around to I finally got around to watch it to make this video or stream this my thoughts on this race because we're already on the next weekend. Dover's just like 2 hours away, the Xfinity race at Dover. So I just wanted to get this video out and just get done with it. So, okay, let's get into it. The forecast for this Talladega race did not look as favorable as it did for the Xfinity race. There were some light showers in the morning, but at least the track was dried out by the time the race began, and there were no weather delays from there. As a matter of fact, the sun went out, and there were no concerns with rain after that. So that's good to see. Speaking of qualifying, Ford, they once again flexed their super speedway prowess, particularly Front Row Motorsports. Once again, fruits of the Penske alliance, with McDowell on the pole and Todd Gilliland in third, with Austin Cindric in second. And then Kyle Busch in fourth and Austin Dillon in fifth. So a great qualifying day for RCR. Martin Truex leading the way for Toyota. He qualified sixth, followed by Joey Logano, Chris Buescher, Chase Elliott, and Christopher Bell. So a good mix of Fords, Chevrolets, and Toyotas up front. Particularly Fords, 5 of them in the top 10. Then behind them, Ryan Preece in 11th, another Ford driver. And then William Byron 13th, Daytona 500 winner. Bubba Wallace 14th, who scored his first career race on this track back in the fall of 21. Harrison Burton 16th. SVG Van Gisbergen 17th, making his second start of the season, first ever on a Cup Series oval race. Then Daniel Hemrick 19th, Ryan Blaney 21st, Brad Keselowski 22nd, Denny Hamlin 23rd. Then Anthony Alfredo 24th, making his second start of the season on the Beard 62 car. His first start since the Daytona 500 as well. First Cup start, of course. Daniel Suarez 25th, then Justin Haley 27th, Josh Berry 29th, Corey LaJoie 31st. Ross Chastain 32nd, so it wasn't that good of a qualifying session for Trackhouse. Ricky Stenhouse 33rd. Yeah, because Suarez started 25th, so Chastain 32nd. Trackhouse was a bit off on qualifying. Stenhouse 33rd. Again, not that it matters that much because qualifying doesn't really matter that much on super speedways. Then Stenhouse 33rd. Cody Ward 34th, making his first start of the season now, driving the 15th. I know some people weren't exactly looking forward to Cody Ware. I, for one, am disappointed, not because, Cody Ware is back on the racetrack, but I'm honestly disappointed that Rick Ware, they just did not give Kaz Grala the full-time ride simply because I know this was planned, before the season started. I'm also a bit disappointed that Front Row Motorsports, they didn't open up their third car for, Kaz Grala in the 36. And even if they really wanted to even if Rick Ware Racing, they wanted to put someone else in the 15, they could have gone with, Riley Herbst. He has been better at super speedways than Cody Ware, but then again, I'm not disappointed that Cody Ware is Cody Ware is back after, him being, the legal trouble that he was in, because he was already declared innocent from that, the evidence, he was already cleared away from that. I'm disappointed because they didn't keep Kaz Grala on that car full time. It has nothing to do with my hate for Cody Ware. He was reinstated back in NASCAR. There's nothing much you can do, but it's still disappointing that they went with him over some of the other options. Particularly Kaz Grala. I feel like Kaz Grala would have been a great full-time driver at Rick Ware Racing next to Justin Haley, but whatever. Hocevar 35th. Like Trackhouse, Spire Motorsports, they had a pretty poor qualifying session. Corey LaJoie was their highest their highest qualifier in 31st. And as for Saint Smith, I want to double check here where Saint Smith started. Okay, my phone is acting up right now. Come on. It must be slow internet, man. Again, like I said, the internet here is very slow because I'm running on my house with no power. Okay, so Saint Smith started 30th. So all three of the Spire cars, they started 30th or qualified 30th or worse. Not that it matters, but something to point out. Noah Gragson 36. Then BJ McLeod 37th, making his second start of the season in the 78. And finally, Kyle Larson 38th. He did not post a qualifying time because the 5 team, I believe this was before qualifying inspection, pre-qualifying inspection. The NASCAR found the 5 team making an unapproved adjustment to the roof rails. Their car chief was ejected, and he will also have to make a pass-through penalty on lap 1. So, in addition to any potential points penalties that could follow after this race as well. So, there was a very high chance that after this race, Larson would no longer be the points leader, either by a bad finish or because of a potential points penalty. But over the week, no penalties happened. And a little bit of a spoiler alert, spoiler warning. Kyle Larson, he actually kept the points lead after this race. He didn't finish, he didn't, not because he made a good finish, but because of all the chaos that happened towards the end of that race. But Larson managed to keep the points lead, and he was not penalized. So no points penalties for that 5 team due to that roof rail infraction. So again, great to see NASCAR, just being a bit lax, because I was definitely, when that penalty was announced, I was 100% expecting a penalty towards the end of the week. In the week leading up to Dover. But anyways, again, like I said, despite the poor situation regarding the weather, the race starts at its scheduled time, just as the sun started coming out too, and the sun stayed out, which was great. And just like the Xfinity race, the field goes 3 wide immediately in stage 1. The only difference is that the bottom lane was the preferred lane. What we saw in the Xfinity race was a complete opposite, the top lane being the preferred lane. In the Cup race, the bottom lane was the ticket, at least for the first 2 stages. And we'll get to that later again. So, McDowell led the bottom, Cindric led the middle, Truex led the top, and from there the lead quickly became a revolving door. Truex took the lead with a push from Bubba Wallace. Then a few laps later, Daniel Hemric does the same with a push from Chastain, who started 32nd, by the way. Again, qualifying just doesn't matter at super speedways. And Hemric also brings Corey LaJoie and BJ McLeod with them, and they all race for the lead. And a couple of laps after that, it's Chase Briscoe and Justin Haley's turn to lead some laps and be out front. But of course, the common denominator was, as soon as the leader was clear all around, they moved down to the bottom, and sometimes even down the middle instead of staying at the top, which was the complete opposite of the Xfinity race. And it stayed that way up until green flag pit stops began on lap 40, when BJ McLeod, who was fighting for the lead at the time, he lost fuel pressure in turn 3. He went off the track. He kept it off the wall and off of other drivers, but it was a very close call. And because his pit stop was unscheduled, because again, he lost fuel pressure, he was supposed to pit with a group of cars, but because of that issue, he was forced to pit by himself, make an unscheduled stop. He ended up losing the draft, but this slowly brought everyone else down pit road. These pit stops were mostly fuel only, with a couple of exceptions. Briscoe and Haley, they pitted by themselves on group, they pitted by themselves. They were like group 1, let's call it. Chase Briscoe, he had to come back down later on for tires after flat spotting the tires, entering pit road. Then the next lap, the next group comes in, the Chevys, Hemric, Suarez, Austin Dillon, Chastain, Corey LaJoie, Saint Smith, and also Cody Ware. Suarez, Saint Smith, they were penalized for speeding on that stop. Then the next group, Anthony Alfredo, Noah Gragson, Ryan Preece, and basically all of the Toyotas. Truex, John Hunter, Ty Gibbs, and Denny Hamlin. Speaking of Hamlin, he spun out after locking the tires up due to running over a small patch of water of all things. And he had to pit for tires as well after making contact with John Hunter Nemechek. Then the next group is basically most of the field. It's a mix of Chevys and Fords though. Elliott, Larson, also Bubba Wallace's Toyota, Austin Cindric, Alex Bowman, Harrison Burton, Blaney, Buescher, McDowell. That was like the biggest group. And then group 5 is just the rest of the field. Berry, SVG, Logano, and Keselowski. Logano got penalized for speeding as well on that stop. So when it's all settled and the small groups they merge into one big pack, it's Kyle Larson leading the pack at the bottom lane. But because he is a lap down, the actual leader is Chase Elliott behind him, with William Byron second and Kyle Busch in third. That's how they cycle back. But as the stage winds down, the outside lane starts gaining momentum, led by the Fords of Cindric, Burton, Blaney, and Keselowski. And it stays that way until the last lap. Larson clears ahead of Cindric and Elliott, and he is well on his way to getting his lap back on the track instead of, through the free pass. But coming to the tri-oval, he gets shuffled out to the top, and he is unable to block both lanes. He ends up getting passed by Cindric and Elliott, who are racing for the stage win. So Larson, he still gets the free pass, but he would have much rather gotten his lap back on the track so he could pit with the lead lap cars and not start at the tail end of the field instead as the Lucky Dog usually does. So a bit of a hamstring. It just means that he's gonna have to work a little bit harder to get into the front, but again, in super speedways, track position doesn't really matter that much. So Cindric ends up winning stage 1 by a nose over Chase Elliott, who settles for second. William Byron finishes third, Ryan Blaney fourth, Kyle Busch, Harrison Burton, Christopher Bell, Keselowski, Reddick, and Alex Bowman are the top 10 stage point gainers. Then we go to pit road. Everyone pits, and Kyle Busch wins the race of pit road over Chase Elliott, Cindric, and Blaney. Noah Gragson has to back up, exiting his pit stall. He loses a couple of spots after entering in 12. Keselowski and Alfredo, they stay out so that they can pit a lap later. So this gives the lead back to Kyle Busch. And Denny Hamlin also has an extended pit stop to assess damage from the contact with John Hunter after spinning entering pit road. He still stays on the lead lap though. So we go to stage 2. It's now Kyle Busch and Blaney leading the race. Blaney gets the lead with help from Cindric. It also helps that he restarted on the bottom lane while Kyle Busch took the top for, whatever reason. And just like in stage 1, the field goes 3 wide immediately. And the lead continues to be a revolving door of all types of drivers. SVG, Alfredo, Gragson, they all take turns leading the race. But it's not until John Hunter Nemechek takes the lead and it stays out front for a good while as the lead, the action starts getting a bit stale up front. They're still 3 wide, but the field is now not making any moves. They're just trying to save fuel. They're still 3 wide, but not many significant moves were being made. At least not until lap 95, when Hamlin and Chris Buescher, they surge to the lead and they take it away from the 42. And then from there, lap times pick up as the leaders, they start forcing the rest of the field to pit first. So green flag pit stops, they do eventually begin on lap 102 for this stage. Of course, Chase Briscoe makes an unscheduled pit stop around lap 91 for tires. The first group, the Fords, they are the first to pit. Chris Buescher, Gilliland, Ryan Preece, Keselowski, Gragson, and McDowell. Then the second group are the Toyotas and the Chevrolets. Bubba Wallace, Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon, Eric Jones, Larson, Bowman, Suarez, Chastain, LaJoie, Hocevar, and Chase Elliott. Corey LaJoie spins coming off of pit road after going over another water patch, similar to what happened to Hamlin after stage 1. Only difference is that LaJoie spun out exiting his pit stall. Then the colleague teammates pit on their own the very next lap, Hemrick and SVG. And then group 4, the next group, they pit several laps after the first 3 groups. John Hunter pits all by himself a lap before they calm down. But this group is basically the rest of the Toyotas and Justin Haley, Hamlin, Truex, Bubba Wallace, Ty Gibbs, Tyler Reddick. Denny Hamlin misses his pit stall and he has to back up. And Bell also gets penalized for speeding. So once again, poor execution from the Toyotas on pit road. And then the final group is just basically the rest of the field. Basically all of them, all of the Fords. Logano, Blaney, Cindric, Berry, they have not pitted yet. Blaney unfortunately gets penalized for speeding. And by taking less fuel because they pitted much later than the others, Joe Logano and Austin Cindric are able to cycle back 1-2. And they hold the lead, at least until Chris Buescher, who was leading the merge pack, he makes a daring move on the both of them to take the lead. Close call, he split through both of them, threading the needle. That could have ended really ugly for the rest of the field because I believe he made contact with Cindric, and Logano was also trying to throw a block. So yeah, it was very dicey for a moment there. But from there, it was a race to the end of the stage. Logano manages to get to the bottom with help from Cindric, and Buescher stays up top with help from the Stewart-Haas racing cars of Ryan Preece and Noah Gragson. But once again, the bottom lane wins out, and Logano, with help from his Penske teammate, wins stage 2 for what is actually his first stage win of the season, believe it or not. So Austin Cindric finishes second, Kyle Larson third, Austin Dillon fourth, Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick, Chris Buescher, Chase Elliott, Ryan Preece, and Ty Gibbs round out the top 10 for stage points. And for the first time ever since the stage era began, both stages at Talladega have gone caution-free. Don't expect that to continue though. It's going to get wild from now on. So far the only 2 cautions have been from stages, which has been good, but don't expect that to continue. The madness it's going to all go down in stage 3. You know already what happens. You already know how it is with stage racing nowadays. So we go to pit road. The leaders pit for 4 tires and fuel this time. Logano wins the race of pit road over Larson, Cindric, and Chastain. Keselowski, Truex, Ty Gibbs, Briscoe, Corey LaJoie, SVG, and Alfredo. All of these guys stay out in order to pit 1 lap later and avoid the pit road chaos. So, and we go to stage 3 with Logano and Austin Cindric on the outside and Chastain and Kyle Busch on the inside. Chastain gets the lead. He moves up top briefly to block the run, and then he stays on the bottom. And this time around though, and you would notice, this is what I was alluding to when I was talking about the first 2 stages, but in stage 3, both lanes were even. You know, the bottom lane still has a slight advantage, but it's not like the first 2 stages where it was like the dominant lane. Both lanes were pretty much even now. And of course, there's also a lot of pushing and shoving, which can attribute to, both lanes being pretty much even. But all this pushing and shoving also leads to a caution. The first caution for incident, which was to be expected, honestly. But yeah, all of this pushing and shoving led to an accordion on the top lane on the backstretch. Elliott, which culminates in Chase Elliott shoving Justin Haley into Christopher Bell, who crashes out hard entering turn 3. Briscoe, Ryan Blaney, Saint Smith, they're also collected. And everyone pits this time on pit road because they're pretty close to their fuel window. Logano wins the race of pit road over Josh Berry, Noah Gragson, and Austin Cindric after taking fuel only. But it's not over yet because Alfredo, Larson, Bubba Wallace, Reddick, Byron, Jones, Elliott, Keselowski, and Briscoe, they all stay out to pit a lap later, and everyone gets the hint. And with 1 lap to go, just as that they're lining up for the choose, everyone pits a second time to top off fuel, like 1 lap before the restart. The only drivers who stay out were Josh Berry, Noah Gragson, Harrison Burton, Daniel Hemrick, Corey LaJoie, and SVG. And all of this shenanigans, this leads to the whole field restarting single file, or nearly the entire field, as the pits are closed 1 lap before green, so that's a tail end of the longest line penalty. So only 3 cars restarted on the outside lane. With Josh Berry and Noah Gragson leading both lanes, but behind them, the entire field goes 3 wide, and the race is on once again. The lead becomes a bit of a revolving door at this point, from Berry to Noah Gragson to Daniel Hemrick to Ross Chastain, until eventually Michael McDowell comes out of it with the lead once again. But most importantly, The top lane is the dominant lane now. A stark contrast to how the bottom lane was the preferred lane all throughout the first two stages. And both lanes have been even all throughout this final stage up until now. Now the top lane is the dominant lane now. And this became pretty apparent when the leaders went single file. They all took the top lane. McDowell leading with his teammate Tark Gillen in second, and then Brakaslawski in third. And once again, this time they start pulling away. Again, forcing the hand on the rest of the field to consume fuel. Because, like I said, they are pretty tight. That last pit stop that they made, it put them pretty tight on their fuel window. It put everyone pretty tight. It got everyone pretty tight on their fuel window. So now the leaders were trying to force the hand on the rest of the field to pit sooner. And not long after, the Toyotas, they just bite the bullet and they all pit together. Denny Hamlin, Ty Gibbs, Eric Jones, John Hunter, Tyler Reddick, Bubba Wallace, Ty Gibbs, Martin Truex. And because of this, they are all good to go to the end. And they can go 100%. So this ends up flipping the script on the rest of the field as far as fuel consumption goes. And now the rest of the field, they are like, okay, now they have to consume fuel now. Because otherwise, if they save fuel, the Toyotas, they're well organized. And they are going to... And they're going to catch up to them because they can go full throttle until the end. Those guys were going like 50, 60% throttle, sometimes even 40% throttle, running like 170 miles an hour. And that's like 2 to 3 seconds a lap that you're actually, even on a super speedway, like that's a lot. So yeah, the Toyotas, they had just flipped the script on the entire field and they were on the way to basically, finessing a win, a total team victory. They were like total team control at this point. But unfortunately for them, it all goes to hell when John Hunter Nemechek gives Bubba Wallace a shove entering turn 3. This gets the 23 loose and Eric Jones gets collected. He makes contact with the 43. And also Hamlin gets collected, who got hit by the 42 trying to get through. And just like that, 4 Toyotas were taken out of contention. Only Ty Gibbs, Martin Truex, and Tyler Reddick managed to go through. Their 3000 IQ play blew up in their face. That was just an epic disaster class. And of course, once again, that Monday morning meeting is gonna be spicy. What would I do to just be a fly inside that room? Toyota, they had the winning strategy, but they just, once again... And this was basically the theme through the entire race. Their poor execution was just ended up with them shooting themselves in the leg one too many times. Big hits for Eric Jones and Denny Hamlin in particular. Head on into the turn 3 wall for both of them. Eric Jones in particular, he immediately alerted the medical personnel that something was wrong with his back. Like, he was okay at first, but he was transported to a local hospital for further evaluation after he was interviewed, and he was eventually ruled out for this weekend's race at Dover. This is a news that came out like leading up to this week. He will be replaced by reserve driver Corey Heim, who will be making his Cup Series debut at the Monster Mile. But yeah, the moment he said his back hurt, my mind immediately went back to Eric Almirola at Spring Kansas 2017. Ironically, former driver of the 43 car too. And I know what people are gonna say once again with the Gen 7 car and safety. And I'm not gonna lie, this is like the third. This is the third year of this Gen 7 car, and we already have 4 drivers missing races due to injuries. Of course, we had Alex Bowman last year. Then we also had. We had Alex Bowman. We also had, what's this guy? Noah Gragson. This is one of the most forgotten crashes, because when people think about Gragson last season, they think about his suspension, but he also missed the race after crashing out hard at Gateway. Also Eric Jones, and of course Kurt Busch. The crash that ended up cost him to go into early retirement. So yeah, it's fair to say that the Gen 7 car has had a poor track record. But then again, like I said, if you compare this crash to Eric Almirola's crash, Almirola ended up missing more races with a back injury and again, we don't know how many races Eric Jones is gonna miss. Hopefully, he doesn't win. He doesn't miss as many races as Almirola. For all we know, he could be back the next race at Kansas. Again, ironically, the side where Almirola crashed out, but then again, these back injuries, they are very hard to. They are very hard to predict, like when the driver is gonna be back on the seat of the car. You obviously want them to be back as soon as possible, but their health is what matters the most. So, wishing that Jones boy has speedy recovery. But then again, when you compare this crash to the crash that sidelined Almirola for a few weeks back in 2017, the Almirola crash happened at a less speed in the more safer Gen 6 car. This crash happened at a higher speed in the less safer Gen 7 car, and Jones went mostly unscathed from it. He was able to do his interview. I don't think Almirola was able to do an interview after he crashed out. Like, he was immediately sent to the local hospital. Like, Jones did his interview, and then after that he was complaining still of back pain, and then he was transferred to a local hospital, and that's where he was diagnosed with I believe it was a compression fracture on his lower back. But yeah, he's gonna be out of the Dover race for the moment. He doesn't know. We still don't know how many races he's gonna miss. But again, like I said, wishing that Jones boy a speedy recovery. So after that disaster class from Toyota, we go to pit road. The remaining Toyotas stay out, and they inherit the top 3 spots. Tyler Reddick, Martin Truex, and Ty Gibbs, obviously the top 3. They got the lead, but at what cost? They are the only 3 Toyotas left in the race. Well, everyone else pits for fuel. Hocevar stays out to pit by himself 1 lap later. McDowell wins the race of pit road. And Blaney, once again, he got caught speeding on pit road, but upon further review, that penalty was rescinded. Thankfully. Surprising that NASCAR, this is a first. NASCAR, they rescind penalties for like equipment violations, like upon further review and stuff like that. But speeding penalties are mostly automated. So it's surprising. It surprised me a bit that NASCAR, they managed to rescind a speeding penalty. Again, maybe it was just a malfunction in the software. Who knows? But yeah, we go to the restart. It's a Ford versus Toyota battle for the win. The Fords of McDowell, Keselowski, Berry, and Gragson leading the bottom lane. And then the Toyotas are on the top lane, led by Reddick, Truex, and Ty Gibbs. And because of the numbers disadvantage the Toyotas have, they are no match for the Fords down low. Despite running on what has been the preferred lane all throughout Stage 3, they line up on the top lane. But because they don't have the numbers to keep up with the Fords actually have the slight advantage on the bottom lane. But again, because the top lane has been the better lane in Stage 3, the Toyotas are able to hold steady for the time being, allowing McDowell to clear out ahead and lead both lanes. Again, like I said, this was just Ford's race to lose. And then on the final laps, because this race goes green the rest of the way, Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney, they start leading the third lane with 6 laps to go, trying to make something happen, and they pick up SVG and Kyle Busch along the way. But unfortunately, though, that third lane just goes to shit when Ty Gibbs he tries to get ahead of them. He tries to get the lane to pick him up, but it looks like he got loose or he didn't have enough momentum as he moved up, and he just ended up killing the entire momentum of that lane. He sent everyone towards the back. Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, everyone that was on that lane, SVG, they were sent towards the back, outside of the top 20. So it's McDowell, Keselowski, and Tyler Reddick racing for the win. And on the last lap, Keselowski makes his move, giving McDowell a big shove down the backstretch in order to clear Tyler Reddick and race it out for the win amongst him and the 34 car. McDowell sees it coming and he throws a block up top, but similar to how he won back in 2009, that was his first career win. Keselowski docks down low to make the pass, helped by Gragson. McDowell moves down low too to throw a second block, but he fails and he gets turned off the nose of Keselowski, triggering a massive wreck on the tri-oval coming to the finish line. And through all the carnage, Tyler Reddick threads the needle in between the 2 wrecking Fords, and he steals the win away from the Blue Oval Brigade. Wow. Just wow. I just looked at that finish, and I'm still replaying that finish in my head. That has got to sting. This was Ford's best race they had put together so far this season. This was their race to lose, and they still came up empty. 10 races in, and they're still winless. And to make matters worse, they were celebrating the Mustang's 60th anniversary this weekend too. They just blew it. I'm still in disbelief because, you guys already know. I am a Ford fan. Yes, I may be a Kyle Busch fan. Yes. But I am a Ford fan through and through. Ford is my favorite manufacturer of the three. And that Mustang, they look pretty slick. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of the Dark Horse Mustang because, or more specifically, I'm not a fan of the fact that they took the blue oval logo away from the Mustang, from the new Mustang. It kind of like takes away from the brand identity for Ford, but still, I will always root for the blue oval brand. And to just watch them just put together the best race they have so far this season, and for all that to just go to shit due to a bad block that McDowell threw. And again, I don't blame McDowell for that. It's the last lap at Talladega, but still, he should know better that blocking twice. If you block once, it's okay, but blocking twice is just not gonna work. Just gonna end up wrecking yourself 9.9 times out of 10. Okay, let's move on because I'm just getting depressed. Let's talk about Tyler Reddick. How about that 45 team? First win of the year, and he is on a hot streak of his own too. 7th different winner this season. He locks himself into the playoffs, and most importantly, he snaps the Hendrick Motorsports Joe Gibbs Racing streak of dominance. Yes, I know 2311 is a JTR satellite team, but still. Tyler Reddick is looking like a real dark horse title contender this season. And again, as a Ford fan that I am, I certainly feel gutted they lost it out like that. But hey, at least we got to see Michael Jordan celebrate on the track. This is the first ever win, 2311 win, that he's on the track to watch. Like for all of the other wins, either when Bubba Wallace or Kurt Busch or all of the Tyler Reddick's previous wins with 2311, Jordan was not on the track. Jordan was not on the track. Like this is the first time Michael Jordan, car owner, is on the track to celebrate a NASCAR win. He may have a poor track record of being an NBA owner, but as a NASCAR owner, he stays winning. And also, Tyler Reddick was running the Jordan logo paint scheme too, so that was awesome. And we also got to see his son Bo chatting it up with arguably the NBA's GOAT while his dad celebrated on the track. That was awesome. Like honestly, what I would do. I could just imagine what Tyler Reddick's son has got to be feeling when he grows up. He's gonna be looking back at that moment. It was like, yeah, my dad won while I was chatting it up with Michael Jordan. That was awesome. And look, I may have mixed feelings for Denny Hamlin as a driver, but as a car owner, I'm talking about Denny Hamlin as a car owner here, I have a ton of respect for the guy. He is very insightful. His social media game is top notch. And most importantly, he brought Michael Jordan into NASCAR, and not just as someone who provides the checks and money to put the team running, but as a car owner who is very involved in the sport. He wants to actually see his team succeed. That interview, that Victory Lane interview with that Jamie Little had with Michael Jordan, that was just awesome. Jordan is really invested on this team, and he is all in on wanting to succeed with NASCAR. So that is actually awesome. Just how the NBA and NASCAR worlds are just coming together with Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin owning the NASCAR team, and Denny Hamlin also becoming one of this the next generation of NASCAR owners, along with Justin Marks, another car owner. And Justin Marks is another car owner that I have a ton of respect for, and I love a lot. But yeah. But yeah, 2311, if this doesn't cement 2311 as the third best team of this season behind Hendrick and JGR, I don't know what does, because Reddick, he just won a race. Bubba Wallace right now, before this race he was like top 10 in points, but he's still solidly, he has a solid cushion in the playoff. Even with this bad finish, he still has a solid playoff cushion in the playoffs, in the playoff bubble. Um, so yeah, 23-11, in my opinion, they are the third best team in NASCAR behind the big two of HMS and JGR. So going down to the finishing results, Brad Keselowski finishes second. Once again, Ford, they just sold this one hard. Noah Gragson third, and new career best finish for him. Stenhouse in fourth, great finish for that 47 team, who they have been struggling to start the season. Alex Bowman fifth, he picks up his fourth top 5 of the season. Anthony Alfredo in sixth. Speaking of career best finishes, Alfredo sets a new career best finish in Cup just one day after tying his career best finish in Xfinity of third, who he did the Saturday prior. William Byron in seventh, Todd Gilliland eighth, Daniel Hemrick ninth, and Harrison Burton 10th, running out the top 10. Shout out to Daniel Hemrick and Harrison Burton in particular, man. Great top 10 runs for two drivers that have had a dismal start to their respective seasons. Arguably the two most disappointing drivers this season, and they both managed to get top 10 runs out of it. I know it's Talladega, anything can happen, but still. Daniel Hemrick in particular, he stayed up front and led a couple of laps. I was very surprised by that. Let's going down through the finishing results here. Martin Truex 11th, Chase Briscoe 12th, Ross Chastain 13th, Ryan Preece 14th, Chase Elliott 15th, Josh Berry 16th, Carson Hocevar 17th, Corey LaJoie 18th. He crossed the finish line with his car sideways, and then he made a flip. And then he flipped after crossing the finish line. That was a wild ride for both him and Josh Berry, because Josh Berry's car was also airborne. I believe LaJoie's car got airborne underneath Josh Berry, and then he crossed the finish line like on his side and then flipped. Like, that was a wild ride that I'm surprised a lot of people just are not talking about that. I know they're talking about the Corey LaJoie flip, but Josh Berry also had a wild ride of his own too. Then Joey Logano 19th and Ryan Blaney 20th, riding out the top 20. Kyle Larson 21st. Again, like I said, surprisingly enough, no penalties were handed out to the 5 team leading up to this weekend at Dover in regards to that roof rails infraction. So he keeps the points lead for now. And again, all of the carnage shaking up the finishing order towards the end of the race. Larson, despite finishing outside the top 20, he keeps the points lead for now. Ty Gibbs 22nd. This is the first finish outside the top 20 for him. Again, nothing against that 54 car. Just point out how great of a start of the season he had. Obviously, that's gonna loosen some momentum, but Cody Ward 24th in his first start back since being indefinitely suspended by NASCAR. He gets a top 25. Solid job. Chris Buescher 25th, Daniel Suarez 26th, Kyle Busch 27th, just brutal. If Ty Gibbs just didn't move up, with like 5, 6, 4 to go, they probably would have, he probably would have had a shot at, a top 10 finish at the very least. SVG 28th, he finished towards the back, but he kept his car in one piece. He finished with the car in one piece, so still a dub. It's still a dub, and he completed all laps too. He finished on the lead lap, kept the car in one piece. He finished 28th, sure, but for his first Cup Series Oval start, I'll call that a win. Austin Dillon 30th, Michael McDowell 31st. After leading the race at the Tri-Oval, he just finishes all the way down in 31st. BJ McLeod 2nd, John Hunter Nemechek 33rd, Justin Haley 34th, Eric Jones 35th. Again, get well soon, Jones boy. And then Bubba Wallace 36th, Denny Hamlin 37th, and Christopher Bell 38th. So, that was such a race. Talladega Gen 7 races, and honestly, Gen 7 Super Speedway races, they have been mostly clean, which is always appreciated. I mean, they are mostly clean. Obviously stage 3, a last lap crash happens. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it does. But the racing leading up to those final few laps is pretty clean. And while the fuel saving might get on some drivers' nerves as well as most of the fans, and I completely understand why, because by saving fuel, you're not racing 100% full throttle. You're just pacing around at 170 miles an hour. That's a crazy statement to say, but it just goes to the how wild Talladega usually is. That 170 miles an hour is considered pacing. Um, Also, the fact that the leader is consuming more fuel than the rest of the field could hurt them in the long run. Also, that's also being counterproductive. It's like if you stay out and lead laps, you're consuming more fuel, and it could actually hurt you in the long run. I understand why that would be counterproductive to some drivers. It's like, yeah, by leading laps, by staying out front and leading laps, you're actually putting yourself at risk of losing the race in the end. And Kyle Busch, he said it best after the race. You either stay where you are and finish where you are, or you try to go for the win and get shuffled out in the process. But this is going to be an unpopular opinion for me. I honestly find it refreshing, despite, the mixed opinions on the drivers and the generally negative reception of the fans in regards to this style of racing. Fuel saving in the stages and then just go all out after everyone is good to go on fuel. People won't like it, obviously, because they're not going 100%, quote unquote. But personally, I find it refreshing that this is an element of the race that was fully within the driver's control and that you can use to your favor by forcing other drivers to pit before you and play mind games with the rest of the field by, going 100% throttle at certain points during the race. Look at Toyota, for example. Yes, their execution was terrible, but on paper, that strategy was forcing the hand of the rest of the field, and it would have been the winning strategy in my opinion. It was not luck either. That was just, perfectly well planned. It just was executed poorly on their end. Yes, Toyota ended up winning the race, but that was just by sheer goddamn accident, by just the force just giving them the win on silver platter. And speaking of Toyota, Tyler Reddick just saved them from having an awkward Monday morning meeting. That meeting will still happen, trust me, as, that stuff still needs to be addressed. There was a lot of poor execution on Toyota's part. But the mood will be much more jovial and way less tense all throughout. It was like, yeah, we won the race. Yeah, congrats for winning the race. Yeah, at least we managed to come out of it with a win. But there's still some things that need to be addressed. So overall, I'm going to give this race an A-. Again, I just like, this new era of super speedway racing. Like I said, it's pretty refreshing not having a wreck fest up until the final lap of the race. I just don't like when wreck fest happen too early in the race. Case in point, 2021 Daytona 500. It just kind of ruins my mood for the rest of the race, and it just as well as also eliminating some pretty big players. But yeah, the fuel strategy element, again, it may be polarizing, but I personally like the fact that, this is something that drivers can this is an element of the race that drivers can actually control in a super speedway race, in a race that you don't usually cannot control much. You know how super speedway racing goes. They're essentially called a lottery. So the fact that there's some parts of the race that you can control, it's actually, again, like I said, it's actually refreshing. Driver of the race, there were a couple of candidates. I initially considered Noah Gragson simply because he finished career best third. Also, Daniel Hemrick was also considered because he led laps and finished in the top 10. And he generally looked pretty strong all day. In the end, though, I decided to go with Anthony Alfredo. I don't usually go with non-Cup drivers as the driver of the day, but Anthony Alfredo, he led laps, stayed out front, and he kept it clean all the way to the end to finish 6th. And this coming up of a third place finish in the Xfinity race on Saturday too, which tied his career high in that series, his career best finish in that series too. So arguably the biggest winner of this weekend as far as drivers go, outside of course, Jesse Love and Tyler Reddick, who ended up winning their 2 respective races. But if we're talking about drivers that, they didn't win the race, but they kept their car clean and they managed to get results out of it, Anthony Alfredo, he finished top 6 in both races, both of those results being career highs in both Xfinity and the Cup Series respectively. And also, Jesse Love was not present in the Cup race, Tyler Reddick was not present in the Xfinity race, so you could argue that Anthony Alfredo was the biggest winner of this weekend. So just because of that, I'm just going to give him the driver of the race award to him. He deserves that. So, now that that's done, let's go to Dover. Hopefully this race doesn't get rained out. We don't have any weather delays because it's been since 2021 since we had a Sunday, a Dover race, a Cup Series Dover race run on Sunday. 2022 was run on a Monday. 2023 was also run on a Monday. I haven't paid attention to the weather a lot, so hopefully, especially on Sunday, hopefully the weather goes. There are no issues with the weather, and we managed to see a clear sky, a Dover race under clear skies, because I actually like the track. You know, this may be an unpopular opinion in the year 2024, but I still like Dover. And with the Gen 7 car, I feel like we still have not seen the full potential of that, of what that racetrack has got to bring to us. So I guess I'm just gonna leave this here, and let's just enjoy the Dover weekend. Oh, and one more thing before I leave. Please, Ford, just win one more race. I beg you. I don't care if it's by sheer goddamn accident. I don't care if it's fuel mileage or rain. Please. This cannot stay any longer. I just want you to win. I don't care if it's a Cup Series, an Xfinity race, or a truck race. Please win. I beg you. Okay, now that's